There you go. So, Ronel, over to you.
Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you everybody for joining us. And I hope you are warm and cozy and you are ready to spend some time talking about finances. Now, this evening, I'm going to talk about the fireproof way to stop your money from disappearing. And this evening, I actually thought that this is maybe a difficult topic in the sense that during this time, a lot of us experienced that we didn't even have money coming in. Nonetheless, our money just disappearing. So, but we will be talking about that as well if you are or were affected in terms of your income generation during this period. Now, I've also just added the hashtags there, women of stature, as well as financially fit life. So if you want to take pictures and you want to post it on social media, please do so, and please add those hashtags, tag us so that we can go and have a look at your pictures, and also tell us on social media what did you think or how did you experience this webinar. So let us get into this. So I want to start off and I want to ask you this question, and then you can in the chat box comment by telling me, if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing? Now you can be quite honest, so tell us, if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing? And then I'm not referring to a job necessarily, just saying in general, what would you be doing? I see the traveling. Yes, that is definitely on my to-do list as well. Traveling, helping others. What else is different? Built my new online business on the best technology. Supporting the community, traveling. I see a lot of traveling coming through. So yes, I think there's lots of things that we would be doing if there's investing in myself, traveling and helping others. So there's definitely lots of different things that we would be doing if money was no problem and we had a constant supply of money. And I think if you really look, there's pretty much a couple of broad categories where most people, what they want to do or would like to do would fall in, and that could be various different things, from having that financial freedom to do what you love, live your best life and make your dreams come true, create a better financial future for your children, grow your investments and build a wealth portfolio, creating multiple income streams. So there are so many things that we couldn't actually do if we do have unlimited money. And I think that is almost the most important thing to start off when you really want to go on a money journey and really want to improve your financial situation, to first of all understand the why. What do you want to ultimately achieve? And once you have set that bigger vision and those goals, then it becomes much easier to really stick to your goals when it comes to financial goals, because you know what you want to achieve and you can work towards achieving that. Now, just to give a little bit of background about myself, I'm a chartered accountant. I've spent 14 years in the corporate environment where I've mainly worked for all the big four banks, insurance companies, investment companies. And I think that is where a big portion of my passion as well as my experience in terms of finances came from or originated, because there I could really understand how the financial world works and how the big listed companies manage their money, and also to understand financial products, investments, insurance, all of those things a lot better. And that really equipped me with a lot of hands-on and practical knowledge that I'm currently using to help my clients to really create a better financial future for themselves, or for, if they are in business, for their businesses. So I've started my own company called Financially Fit Life in 2015 when I left the corporate world. And currently I'm doing financial consulting, mainly for businesses from small to medium-sized businesses, right up until large listed corporates, as well as financial training. So I'm really passionate about finances, and I always believe that once you equip yourself with the financial knowledge and you start understanding more about finances, and you start seeing the results in terms of what you have put in, then your whole outlook about finances change, and then you really become much more passionate about it, and you really want to improve your financial situation all the time. I've also been a WOS Women in Finance finalist. I've published my book, Financially Fit and Wealthy, that is all about personal finances, in 2019. And then I'm also the co-owner, together with my sister, of Physique Fit Guest House in Centurion. And you can obviously think that with a guest house during this period where we were severely impacted with not receiving any income for more than 3 months, there again, it emphasized to me how important it is to have a solid financial foundation. So let us go into what we will be talking about this evening: the 3 reasons why your money seems to disappear, why you cannot rely on a single salary or income source, how to safeguard your finances even during a pandemic, and instantly transform your budget into a wealth creation tool. So let us start off with the 3 reasons why your money seems to disappear. Now, I think a lot of you can probably relate with that little picture there at the bottom, where when you look into your purse, and I see smiles on the pictures, that it just seems that your money is just gone and you really don't know what happened to it. And I think if you delve a bit deeper, what are the main reasons causing for you to experience this feeling, then it is that you spend more than what you earn. And if you look at the stats, then we would realize that 77% of people have no money left at the end of the month. So that is literally where people just trying to survive and just live from paycheck to paycheck. And whenever they are receiving their salary or their business income, then they use that to most likely repay debt and to repay expenses that they've already incurred in the past. And that is kind of how people end up getting into a negative spiral, because you never get to a point where you can make progress and you can get ahead in life, because you are constantly just chasing and just trying to get some money and get through the month and try to survive. And then the second reason is that you're not spending time on managing your money and educating yourself about money. Now, again, if we look there at the stats, then South Africa scored 51 out of 100 on the financial literacy index. Now that will show you or prove to you that within South Africa, we have a very average understanding of basic financial concepts. And if you think back about your childhood and maybe your university days, we've never had somebody teaching us about money. We were most likely not taught by our parents or at school or at university. And I could even say for myself, studying to become a chartered accountant, that is very vastly removed from managing money. That is again a complete different subject. And the fact that you can understand accounting doesn't mean that you know how to manage your money. So and I think that also tells us that a lot of people are very hesitant to admit or to acknowledge that they struggle financially, because there's almost this kind of perception that we need to know what's going on with managing our money. But that is actually not a bad thing to admit and to acknowledge, but I don't know how to manage my money properly. I don't know much about investments. I don't know if I'm in debt, how can I repay my debt quicker and how I can become debt-free, because we've never been taught these things. And then if we go into the last one reason, then there's also this misconception about creating the ideal lifestyle. Many people tend to build their lifestyle on spending and incurring debt. So they would, for example, drive a fancy car and stay in an upmarket suburb in a nice expensive house, and for them they associate that with being wealthy and being financially well. But those are actually not aspects or concepts of wealth. And if you really think about how you can create wealth, then it's exactly the opposite of those things. So wealth comes with creating more income and multiple income sources for yourself, as well as creating assets, and specifically assets that can generate more income. So that is how you actually build wealth. And once you have wealth and you have more money or sufficient money, then that lifestyle comes automatically in terms of what you want. And that's taking me back to our first question, the traveling or the nice car or whatever you associate with that lifestyle that you aspire to live, then that comes naturally. But then it's different, because then you can afford that lifestyle and you are not over indebted, or you are not overspending to be able to live that lifestyle. So you are not under pressure to maintain that lifestyle. And if you again look at the stats, then 19 million of South Africans who are credit active, of which 11 million are over indebted. Now, if you convert those, then you would realize that 1 person out of 3 are over indebted. So if we are, say for instance, if we are 50 people this evening on this webinar, then at least 10 of us will be over indebted. And if you look at all these stats, then you would also realize that a lot of people are taking financial strain, not only during this time, but overall. And that again brings me to where people do not really want to admit sometimes that they are struggling financially. They would rather say on social media, I'm overweight and I want to lose 10 kilograms, than they would say, I desperately need 10,000 Rand to get me through this month. And that is, I think, something that we need to change. We need to become comfortable to realize that we are taking strain, that we are stressed about money, and we need to ask for help or need to educate ourselves about money, or really spend some time on managing our money and understanding our financial situation and what we can do to change that. Now, if we go into why you cannot rely on a single salary or a single income source. So if I have to ask this question, what do all the billionaires have in common? They have done this research study on the billionaires in the world, and then they've discovered that they all have at least 5 different investment types and at least 7 sources of income. So I'm going to say that again. They all have at least 5 different investment types and at least 7 sources of income. Now, those investment types could be a variety of different things. Those could be different businesses, it could be shares, unit trusts, property investments, it could be any type of investment, and the same with the sources of income. That could also be relating to those investments or the different types of businesses that they invest in or that they derive income from. And that would basically prove why we say the bigger the gap between your income and expenses, the richer you will get. And I think that is a very basic principle of finances. If you can understand that concept and apply that concept in your financial situation, you will definitely see the benefits coming through. So I want you to give me maybe in the comments, where are you if you think about having at least 5 different investment types and 7 sources of income? Are you close to being classified as a billionaire, or are you halfway there, getting there? Are you still on 1, or are you still on nothing? So let me see.
Ronel, I see that we have a question here from Paul Hassett. How do income sources differ from income types, Ronel? Would you like to answer, Paul?
Yes, I will answer that now. So let me just quickly look at the answers. So most people says not at all or not close. Okay, let's go back to Paul's question. How do income sources differ from income types? Income sources is kind of like in the source where you would derive that income from. So as that could be coming from an investment, it could be coming from business, it could be coming from maybe being an agent, or maybe doing some network marketing. That is basically the source that provides you with an income. Where an income type is more something like a dividend. If you have an investment in shares, then your income type would be dividends. If you have an investment in property, so your source would be property and your income type would be rental income. If you have investment in maybe like a money market fund or a tax-free savings account, which got an underlying cash basis, then your income type would be interest. Does that answer your question, Paul? You said thanks. So thank you for that question. So yes, so I think the general feeling is that we are not close to being in that position of having at least 5 different investment types and 7 sources of income, but at least we have a goal now. If we want to become billionaires, we know we need to set this as our goal, and that is where we want to work towards. Remember, no billionaire has been made overnight, so you have some time to get there and to achieve this. So let me see. Okay, so then looking into more reasons why you cannot rely on a single salary or income source. Again, if you think about what's happened now during lockdown, where a lot of people were severely impacted in terms of not receiving an income or receiving a reduced income, then you would again realize how important it is that you have multiple income streams. And I think again, the people who do have multiple income streams were definitely the people who were a lot less stressed during this period. If I can just give my personal situation as an example, if my guest house was my only source of income, that would have been a severely stressful event for me during this time. But because I also have my financial consulting company, I also have property investments that still received some rental income during this period. I still have my other investments that I could earn some investment income from. So that is kind of, that helped me to, because I've diversified my income sources and I have different income sources, that helped me definitely during this period not to be so severely stressed. Then also we know, and I think it's now going to even get worse than before, that the economy and businesses are struggling. And I think this, like I said, this will just become worse in the next couple of months specifically. And coming with that, we obviously would see more and more retrenchments coming through. We see more and more businesses failing, not surviving throughout this period. And then again, if you only had one salary, then again, you will be severely impacted. But I think then we also need to think, if you were maybe not severely impacted during this time, but we still need to think about how many other type of things can actually happen to us that can also cause for us not to be able to work and to generate an income. And there I think about things like, if you you can get a really bad illness, you can be in a car accident and you cannot work for a couple of months. And there again, you need to think, when you are planning your financial future, you need to ask yourself, if something like this has to happen to me, how am I going to survive that? And one way that you can do is to make sure that some of the income sources or that you are creating are passive income. So things where you don't need to physically work and spending time on deriving or generate that income. And this is hugely, hugely important. We will touch on that again a bit later. And I think the other big reason why we also need to start looking at this is, if you think about the increase in your living costs compared to the increase in your salary or the increase in your business income, and then you would realize that in most cases, unless your business is performing exceptionally well, but you would see that the increase in living costs is becoming so big or so phenomenal, and that is closing that gap between what you are earning and what you are spending. And there again, it is wrong to only think about the national inflation rate that they are quoting and believe that applies to you. Because how they calculate the inflation rate is they are using very generic type of items to calculate that. But if you go back into your personal financial situation and you go and calculate the year-on-year increase in your expenses, you would realize that your increase in expenses, your personal inflation rate, is much more than what they are quoting. And they are thinking about things like your medical aid, retirement, investments, insurance, all those things tend to, and those are usually your biggest expenses, those things tend to increase with at least 10% a year. If you think about petrol price increases, if you think about food items, the type of food items that you buy. And just to give you an example, it is not odd for you to go to the shops and buy something that costs 50 Rand today and go again in 2 weeks, and all of a sudden it costs 56 Rand. That is not 5% inflation rate like what they are quoting. That is sometimes almost 50% or 100% increase in your expenses. And that is again bringing me back to say that you can cut your expenses as much as possible, and you can be really diligent on working on not overspending. But because of this situation, if you are only going to focus on your expenses and you are never going to look into how can I create more income, you will see that over time, that gap between your income and your expenses is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and that is over the long run, you are becoming poorer and poorer and poorer. And that applies to everybody unless you are conscious about this and you are taking action to counterpart this. So let us look at how to safeguard your finances even during a pandemic. Now, I'm just going to delve into three things this evening, but these are, I believe, the critical things that we need to look at. And you might think that some of these things are very basic, but these are the things that's really, really important. And if you at least get these things right, you will see that you will be able to face a pandemic or any other kind of unforeseen events happening, and you will be able to survive through that. So first of all, it's not about how much you earn, but how much you keep. So a very, very important concept. And that brings me back to having a budget in place. But not only having a budget, having an effective budget. And I believe, and I see that with many of my clients, that people are either not having a budget or they have a budget, but they don't really know how to use a budget effectively. If you get to a point where you understand how to use a budget effectively, you will see huge benefits in your financial situation, because a budget is not about restricting you, and a budget is about you cannot spend or you cannot live the lifestyle that you dream about. A budget is much more than to manage your expenses. And if you only use a budget to manage your expenses and to try and keep within your budget, then you are actually doing it wrong. There is much, much, much more to a budget, and the kind of information that you can get from a budget is really powerful in terms of helping you to make informed and powerful decisions when it comes to money. Then also another very important thing is to have sufficient cash and investments in place, and also touching on that, having an emergency fund in place. I think if I just look at what happened with us at the guest house, if it wasn't for the fact that we had an emergency fund in place, that would have really put a lot of pressure on us, because during this time we could obviously use our emergency fund to pay for our employees and our expenses during this time, and we didn't have to try and get some funding or basically use our personal funds to pay for the guest house expenses. But I'm not talking here only about business, I'm talking about your personal financial situation as well, to really have an emergency fund in place during difficult times, so that you know and you have that peace of mind that you can or you do have access to that money, and you can use it during a pandemic or during any kind of unforeseen event happening. And again, like I said, these are the type of things that I could see also with my clients. The ones who had these things in place definitely had a lot less stress during this period. So again, like what I've said, it's crucial to survive a pandemic or any kind of unforeseen situation that might happen to you. And also, if you know how to use a budget effectively, you will know how to, or you will be able to get in a position where you have sufficient cash and investments as well as an emergency fund. I know a lot of people would say to me, but I don't even have money to get me through the month. How can I still find money to build up an emergency fund or start to save and invest? But like I said again, if you have an effective budget, then you will see by having an effective budget, you will make provision for this in your budget, and that is how you will get there. Then also to equip yourself with knowledge about investments and to really understand how you can really grow your investment and have a diversified portfolio of investments that you can really reap the rewards from, and you can receive maximum returns from it. Because remember, only having a savings account or having a money market, and that is your kind of your complete scope of having investments, that is only having a very, very small portion of the bigger scope of investments out there. And if you understand what investments are really all about and which ones suit you and your lifestyle, then it makes it a lot easier to start growing and building your investments. Then also coming back to what we have touched on is to create more income, and specifically multiple income streams. Now, how do you typically do that? There's basically two ways. The one way is what we would call to actively to create active income sources. Now, how would you typically do that? That is where you, for example, if you are employed and you maybe get a promotion, or you study further and you can apply for a different position where you earn more money, you will obviously receive more income. You can work some overtime. A lot of people are starting to create a sideline hustle, which is, I believe, critical, especially during this period. And you can also look into your hobbies. What do you love to do, and how can you convert that hobby into an income generating hobby, where it's no longer just a hobby, but where you can actually earn money from that. And I've seen, especially during this time, that some people have received huge success by doing this. And there I think of if you maybe are good with art, or you enjoy art, there's an possibility to you know, have art classes, or to educate people how to do art. Or if you are good with cooking and enjoy cooking, you can start looking at maybe to cook for people who work, and they can come and pick up some dinner meals from you, or whatever your hobby is. and see how you can potentially convert that into something that can earn some money for you. But then we also move to the other option, and that is where you can earn income passively. Now, there's pretty much three broader categories of passively generating type of income sources, and there I'm specifically talking about investments, talking about property investments, as well as some businesses. Now, I just want to quickly, where I say investments, I want to just specifically what I see happening during this time. There are lots of scams out there, specifically in this time, because people know that people are desperate and people want to try everything to be able to generate some income. And I want to say to you, be cautious during a time like this to go for very high risk type of investments where you have the risk of also losing a lot of money. Because I have so many clients who are they've promised them these exorbitant type of returns, and they will be receiving 10% per return per week and 300% per year, and all these absolutely amazing returns. And again, if something sounds too good to be true, then it is most likely too good to be true. If there were investments where you could consistently earn a 10% return on a weekly basis or 300% per year, I promise you I would have been the first to invest in it 15 years ago. And I promise you there wouldn't have been any poor people, because everybody would have gone for those type of investments. So be cautious about the type of investment decisions you are making, especially during a period like this. Now, what is the problem with the limiting factor when you think about creating active income streams? There it is obviously time consuming. You need to work for that. You need to put in the hours, and that is perfect. You can also be doing that, but you must just think about the impact on the longer run. You only have limited capacity in terms of hours in a day, and you also cannot consistently work 24/7 for year in and year out. So that is a good option to help you, especially during a period like this where everybody wants to get more income, but try to move away from this over the longer run. And they think about how can you rather create some passive income sources, because that is ideally where you want to be. You want to have time freedom. You want to be able to be in a position where you can earn money and earn income from sources that you don't need to actively work for those money, or you don't need to actively put money or time in to get to receiving those income streams. So think about how you can add these type of income streams into your personal situation. And then we're going to quickly jump into how you can instantly transform your budget into a wealth creation tool. Now, you would always hear me when I talk about budgets. I'm very passionate about budgets, and that is just because I have really seen the benefit of having an effective budget, not only in my personal life and my businesses, but also my clients, as well as the big corporates that where I've worked. I could see that when you really apply a budget effectively and correctly, the benefit that you can receive from that is just enormous. And if you have that solid foundation within your finances, then you really can build any other type of goal or financial goal on top of that. And I see with my clients, they would come to me and they would say, please help me to start investing because I need money. I have too much debt and I want to repay my debt now and I want to get rid of all this debt. And in 99% of the cases, when I ask them, okay, but let's go back to the first step. How do you do your budget? How do you manage your budget, or what does your budget look like? Then most of them would say, but I do not really have a budget, or they would have a budget, but again, just looking at managing some of their expenses, or only have a budget in their head. And that is actually causing them to be over indebted. That is actually causing them not to be in a position where they can save and invest. And then they are quite surprised that when we go back and we fix this portion by helping them to implement an effective budget, then everything else seems to fall in place, because now all of a sudden the foundation that they are working from is actually much more stable. So a first very important thing to think about a budget is that a budget is not only something that you have on paper or that you have in your head where you say, I have this much income, or I budget this much for income and this much for expenses, and then this is my excess or my shortfall. And I think this is already showing one point where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't even include income in their budget. But you need to go a step further, and this is where a budget becomes much more powerful, is when you are starting to actually compare your actual income and expenses against your budget. And you do that on a monthly basis in quite a lot of detail, and then you will start reaping a lot more benefit from a budget, because you are starting to use it much more effectively. And you can really go and see, but I have this figure in mind in terms of my budget, but how do I really compare to what I have in mind in my budget? And then this one also, how to create budget for wealth creation. And again, what we've said, it's not about how much you earn, but how much you keep. And if you think about what's happening there, is if you have your income sources less your expenses, gives you either an excess where your income exceeds your expenses, or it will give you a shortfall where you are overspending or your expenses exceed your income. And if you are in that position, and you quite frequently end up in a shortfall position, that is when you want to go and analyze your finances. What is causing this? and think about how you can improve, because you do not want to, on a frequent basis, end up in a shortfall, because that is when you need to incur more debt just to get you through the month. But you want to be able to have that excess, know what is your excess, and you want to be able to grow that gap between your income and your expenses. And remember, that is where we said you want to reduce your expenses, but you also want to increase your income. You want to create more income. You want to add additional income streams to your personal financial situation, and that will help you to grow that gap between your income and your expenses. And that is ultimately how you can start building wealth, because then you are also in a position when your excess is becoming bigger and bigger that you can invest, and that you can start adding more of those investment types that we've referred to from the billionaires, that you can add more investment types to your portfolio, and that can eventually or ultimately help you to create financial freedom. So let me see, we've been talking quite a lot now, and who of you who is keen to learn how to stop your money from disappearing and start creating wealth and financial freedom? Give me in the comments, how do you feel? Would you like to stop your money from disappearing and start creating wealth and financial freedom? I see yeses coming through. Yes, absolutely. Verseker. So I see lots of yeses coming through. So let me explain to you what do we have in store for you this evening, what you can get. First of all, and I know this is probably the more boring part of it, or what's perceived to be the boring part of it, but like I think maybe this presentation would have already changed your perception about budgeting a little bit. So we have my effective budgeting online course that is about in total 1 hour of video tutorials where we really teach you and help you to implement an effective budget in a practical way. It will also help you to change your perception about budgeting. And the people who's doing this course, they always come back and say, now that I know how to budget effectively, I am actually in a position where I can find some savings in my current financial position. It will also provide you with a workbook that will help you to practically apply the lessons that you are learning in your situation. It will give you a budgeting template, a very easy to use Excel template that you can customize to be a perfect fit for your situation. You will also be receiving a certificate of completion at the end of this course. But the whole purpose with this course is that you would be in a position at the end of the course to implement an effective budget in your personal financial situation and be in a position to use that budget effectively going forward. But this is one part, and like I said, sometimes be considered as the more boring part. the other more exciting part is, you will also be receiving or be able to do my latest online course. So this is still, if I can call it that, fresh off the press, my Master Investments 101 online course. So this is also about 1 hour in video tutorials, and there we delve into how to all the investment terms to make easy, how you can understand what they are talking when you see an advert or you talk to your financial advisor, so that you can understand the language and the jargon, and also to all the key considerations that you need to take into account before investing. Now, usually what is happening is that you will just see this quote or this advert saying that you will be receiving, say for example, 10% return on this investment, and you jump to it, but you've never asked the questions like, would that include the fees? Would that include the tax? Is that before tax or after tax? All those important things that you need to consider. And you will see that once you know what you need to consider, then it quite often you will see for yourself, but this is not as an attractive investment option as I thought. We're also going to delve more deeply into the basic investment types, and they are specifically referred to cash, different types of cash investments, tax-free savings accounts. What does it mean? Why do you need to have it in your portfolio? We also will be talking about shares, unit trusts, and property investments, all the pros and the cons that you need to be aware of. Also, how to become a good investor. What are the things that you need to take into account? And you will also be receiving a workbook and a certificate of completion. And again, the ultimate goal of this course is to help you to make more powerful investment decisions. So if we look at what is the value that you will typically receive from this, or if you go out into the market, how much you could be paying for these courses. The effective budgeting one is usually around 1,650, and the master investments around 1,950. So this gives you a total value of 3,600. But you will not be paying 3,600. I charge, if you have a look on my website, I charge for these two courses 1,797 Rand, but you also won't be paying 1,797 Rand. We have a very special offer for you because you are attending this webinar, and you will get this for only 797 Rand. So you basically only paying for one course, and you get the other course absolutely free of charge. So what I'm also will be offering is that the first 3 people who are paying will also be receiving a 30-minute one-on-one consulting session with me for free. That is worth 950 Rand. And in that session, you can ask all the personal financial questions that you would like to ask. You can, once you've been through these courses, you can discuss some of the lessons that you've learned, or you can use this 30 minutes in any way that you feel most appropriate. So the first 3 people paying for this 797 can receive this one-on-one consulting session. This offer is only valid until Monday, the 3rd of August at 7 o'clock in the evening. So Monday, 3 August. And I will also be offering a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if you are not completely satisfied with the courses, or you believe you are not receiving adequate value, you are more than welcome to contact me and I will refund you with your money. Now, this, you will have to follow this link if you are keen on taking up this offer. You will have to do it on this link. It's financiallyfitlifeacademy.com/WOS. So I'm going to put the link in the comments field. So it is there. Let me just check. Is it to everybody? To everyone. So that is important. So you cannot go to my website and you will pay the normal fee, because it is that 1,797 on my website. We don't make this offer available to the public, so you need to use this link that I've put there in the chat box, in the comments field, if you are keen on taking up this offer. Like I said, 797 is literally paying nothing for a lot of good value that can really help you to fireproof your finances during this period and going forward. And then that basically brings me to the end of this presentation, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Please pop it in the chat box, then we can quickly look at some questions. But I also want to use this opportunity to wish you well with your personal financial situation going forward. I hope that you have received good value from this session, and I can only say that we cannot do much about our past or change much about our past and our current situation, but we do have the power to make a change and to make good informed decisions going forward into our future, and make sure that we create a better financial future for ourselves. So this is everything from my side for this evening. Back to you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much, Ronel. And, you know, I've been taking notes throughout the time that you've been talking, but I loved your slide right in the beginning. If you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing? And I think if we go back to that slide and you actually think now, after having watched this presentation with Ronel, has anything changed? Because I think very often we're thinking about the travels and we're thinking about all the niceties, but yet how many of us are actually willing to invest in our personal and our professional development? Because one of the things you said here was equip yourself with financial knowledge. And how many of us actually do take the time and invest in our knowledge on things that are actually going to benefit us in the long term? I think a lot of us have realized now over lockdown in particular just how important having skills that you can apply, whether it be in the good times or in the not so good times. So if I can end off this session, and as usual, Ronel, you know, I hang on every word that you say. As you've been going through the slides, I've been taking photos and I've been sending it through to my children, because if there's one thing that any parent would want to see, is that their children are financially secure and can eventually have financial freedom. And I do believe that it's becoming more and more difficult for us as parents to really help our children to realize that, because life has become so expensive for our children. And I think especially during this period of time where some of our children might be adversely affected by the lockdown. But I think if there's anything that I would want to see happen after tonight, is that we look at where in the world would we be spending our money, that it rather be in personal and professional development, so that you can upskill yourself, that you can, if necessary, pivot yourself, your business. And I think the big thing that we need to understand here is that through everything that we're going through in life, no matter what the season is or what the circumstances are, if we can learn anything during that time and we can apply that, then we've already gained a lot. And Ronel and I actually spoke earlier on, and we were saying that, you know, what's happening around us is getting closer and closer to home. I don't know about you, but we're hearing more and more cases, first of all, of people that are now being tested positive that are closer to home. But more than that, people that are actually suffering the distress of their financial circumstances. So if anything, that is the one thing one must always now consider going forward. How can you avoid and avert the distress of a crisis? So on that note, I'd like to say thank you very, very much to everybody that attended tonight. I really hope that you found it very, very informative. I certainly did. And I really hope that you will consider joining us on future webinars. And please, if you have anything to share, if there's something that you are particularly passionate about, or you have a skill that you want to share with us, please step forward and let me know. We are always ready to assist and invite anybody that has a skill that they would like to share with us through a webinar. That's available as well. So this is how I've pivoted my business. It's getting online and presenting webinars and giving the space for people to come and actually present their skill, like Ronel has done tonight. So if there's anything else, anybody want to ask a question, or is everybody feeling quite comfortable? You'll obviously be receiving the recording. Just that last minute, I see that people are busy leaving us here, Ronel, but I think the last few people, anybody want to ask a question?
Charlotte, I just see there is a question from Paul.
Okay.
He's asking, would you spend more on getting more of the same investment type that you are comfortable with, or would you go for something unfamiliar for the sake of diversity instead? Well, this is a very valid and a good question. I think this also depends on what your risk profile looks like and what you as an individual feel comfortable with. But if your current investment that you are comfortable with and that you currently have, if that is performing well, then you can obviously stick with that and rather invest more into that. But in terms of diversity and adding additional investment types to your portfolio, that is always a good option. Because again, like, you want to diversify your portfolio so that you do not only have, say for instance, unit trusts, but that you do ideally have unit trusts, you have properties, you have shares, because all of those have different characteristics. And you will also find that during different time periods that those investments will perform differently. So you would see that, for example, during this period now, when a lot of the other investments are not performing well, something like gold is performing exceptionally well. So that is why it is important to diversify your portfolio, and you will never go wrong in doing that. What is important when you go into, like what you said, the unfamiliar investment type, is to first educate yourself about that investment, to really understand what it is all about, what are the returns that you can really expect from it, to understand the pros and the cons, to understand whether it is a high risk or a medium risk or a low risk type of investment. And the more you educate yourself about the investment, the more you reduce your risk. Even if it is a high risk investment type, you reduce your risk of losing money, because you have the knowledge to manage that investment well. So you understand the underlying factors so that you can monitor your investment. And if that investment is maybe going through a dip, then you will be able to spot that timeously, and you can make the correct investment decision in terms of to get out of it or to disinvest or whatever. But then you put yourself in a position to diversify, but to manage it effectively and to make better investment decisions, because you understand that investment as well as the factors that are actually driving that investment. So I would always go for diversifying your portfolio and going into maybe something that you seem to, or that seem to be unfamiliar. But again, you want, ideally, by the time you invest in it, you want to be familiar with it and knowing everything there is to know about it. I hope that answers your question. Then let me see, what else is there?
I see Mark is here. Mark is asking, is it a good time to invest in property right now, Ronel?
Mike, I think with the current situation, it is a bit difficult, because I think nobody knows how long this period is still going to continue, and exactly what the impact will be on the economy. To me personally, I'm a big fan of property investments. I've received good returns from investing in property. So I actually, just before we went into lockdown, my sister and myself were actually looking into investing into another property. So if you can ensure that you make the right choice in terms of that there will be a demand to get tenants in that property, because I think this is the biggest risk at this point. If you buy a property and you are not getting tenants during this period, and it has to be vacant for quite a period. So if you decisions, and you educate yourself about the location where you are going to invest in property, look at the demand and all of that. I think it is definitely at this point a buyer's market, and we will definitely see lots of properties coming into the market where people are in financial distress, and you will be able to pick up those properties for good prices. So I would, if I find the right property and I've done all my homework, I still believe it is a good time to invest in property. Mike, I hope I answered your question. Paul says, I put most of my focus on property for investment and rental. Yeah, because again, if you obviously have properties during this time and you had tenants in it, you would have not been affected in terms of rental income unless your tenants are impacted in terms of losing their jobs or something, then there could be a severe impact. So that is why it is so important to manage it carefully and make good decisions. Does one need a financial advisor to invest your funds, or do you teach how to invest? I personally believe that if you have sufficient knowledge about finances and you have the knowledge to monitor your investments, then you don't need a financial advisor, because at the end of the day, you will be able to make the best decisions that will benefit you and that will add the most value to you. So you definitely don't need a financial advisor, because that is, again, it's adding fees that you need to pay. But again, if you don't feel comfortable with making the correct and informed decisions, then definitely look towards a financial advisor to help you with making the right investment choices for you. But like I said, if personally, I prefer to equip people with the knowledge so that they can make the best decisions for themselves and that they know what to look out for, and being able to be in a position to manage their investments themselves. I hope that answers your questions. Okay, it seems it's all the questions. Okay, that's it, Charlotte.
Okay, right, Ronel. Well, Ronel, I think that you've, as you say, you've answered all the questions. I've had somebody that has already asked if we would consider her as one of our webinar presenters. I've told her that she must contact me on Monday. I'll talk to her offline about it. But I think overall, I think you've covered a lot of very important information, Ronel. And as I said, we're going to be sending the recording out tomorrow. You'll be able to get the information about the special offer. You will see that again on the presentation. If it's something that you're interested in, you can contact Ronel or myself directly for that matter. But I think overall, I think we've pretty much nailed it again, Ronel. Well done. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you to everybody else for your time. And if everybody is happy and you've asked all your questions, then all that's left to say is good night. And yeah, stay safe, stay well, and hopefully the financial decisions you're going to be making going forward is going to be sound decisions. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.